How's it going, everyone? Vince here with On to the Next podcast. This is episode 11, and I'm talking with my good friend Anna Alvarado. We talk about her currently taking on the world of beauty and being a successful businesswoman. And it wasn't easy getting there. And she's going to talk about her journey, some of the relationships, and things she went through at a young age. I'm excited for you guys to listen to this one. This is On to the Next.
It's been a long time coming. They ain't cut for my cloth, they tugging it. Putting up numbers, 99 problems, and I still kept it 100. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. They ain't cut for my cloth, they tugging it.
Anna, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm still awake, full of energy. It's been a
Yeah,
long day, but it's always worth it. So,
yeah. I always release these on a Monday, but it's the end of the week, so you're like, let me just get to that end of the week part. So we're almost there for you, and I know you're a busy person, and I appreciate you coming and doing this because I really believe that your journey is one to be told. So I really appreciate it, Anna.
yeah, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
So, everybody, this is Anna Alvarado, and I'm sorry, last name.
It's
Yeah,
Alvarado.
yeah. So, um, lifelong friend. I mean, my friend Joe Alvarado. This is his sister, and such a wonderful family. And when you know a wonderful family, you kind of just want to be a part of their journey and everything. And I've had the privilege of doing that alongside with Joe, and now seeing you where you've taken your journey, it's been so exciting to see. I'm so happy for you and what you're doing now, because for one, it sounds like you're getting to the point where you're like, man, I'm actually seeing success in what I'm doing, right?
Yeah, finally.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna talk tonight just about kind of your beginning, middle, and of where you've gone, how you got to where you're at. So right now, your company is called Unfiltered Beauty, correct?
Correct.
And if anybody could see, well, if you were able to see, there's a big neon sign, which is a cool. I seen your room. You have a podcast room, which I'm totally jealous of. But Joe actually helped you, so I know it was done right. But there's a huge sign that says Unfiltered Beauty, and that's really cool. I know that's something that you're going to be doing here in the near future with that, right?
Yes.
So what actually I was gonna ask what do you think like is gonna be the vibe of Unfiltered Beauty, the podcast?
I kind of want it to be a little bit of like entrepreneurship, um, success stories, and kind of a little bit of gossip in the beauty industry.
Yeah.
um, I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun. We always joke, we always say we're gonna do, like in those crime shows where they like shadow out the face and change the voice. It's like the names are made up, but the stories are real,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. Um, because people tell us a lot of things when it's weird. People tell us everything when they're in our chairs. So I think it would be a lot of fun just to kind of share some of those stories without mentioning names.
Yeah. A lot of NDA going on, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, I know how that is. You gotta it's like you wanna like I wanna tell somebody, but I can't.
Mhm. So I'm just gonna hide
Yeah.
behind the screen and say it all. No, just kidding.
Yeah. The unfiltered beauty, as you have the unfiltered beauty up, you're telling these stories. But no,
Mhm.
that sounds awesome. I mean, there's a lot of people who will probably tune into that because there's probably a lot of things that you have advice, tips, and a lot of horror stories that you've had throughout your time and throughout your venture, right?
Yes.
So um Yeah, but I know that one thing about you, you're definitely rooted in a great family, and I talk to Joe about this all the time about how um, your mother and father were such a big part of my life, growing up, because of the influence they had on all of us. They were a big influence because they were our pastors, and they were just that they were those people in our lives for all of us.
Mhm.
And what I asked him this question, and I'm gonna ask you, like, how was it for you being a pastor's kid at a young age?
It was rough, like, it was rough. I think, you know, growing up, I feel like my parents were, like, super religious initially when they started out, because
Hmm.
that's how they thought they were supposed to be. So for me, I feel like, I was never allowed to do anything like, the boys, y'all gotta do everything. You guys were always out doing your thing, and I felt like, I was, like, the more sheltered kid, like, "You can't do this, you can't do that." Um, "This is a sin, that's a sin." And I think that's, like, early on in life, that's where I became rebellious. And so I
Yeah.
started doing things kinda, like, on the sneaks, you know?
Yep.
Um, the
Yeah.
things that and, like, I'll always be rooted in that, like, I'll always have my faith because of that, but I think early on, growing up as a PK and everyone looking at you and judging you because you're supposed to be this perfect kid, I think is kind of what set me on that path of, like, looking for attention in the wrong places or doing things behind my parents' back that kinda got me into trouble when I was younger.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy because my sister, I think she would totally agree with you, because as I don't know if it's good or bad that it sounds, but it is different for girls, like, for especially for a pastor and his daughter. He's like,
Mhm.
okay, nobody's getting around my daughter. My daughter is holier than thou. And that's
Yep.
my mom was like that with my sister, like, where she would have to wear these skirts, like these long skirts. And my now she's looking at it, and, like, she's like, I everybody thought I was Amish when because you're making me
Aw.
wear these dresses. And so it was like, in and she looks at it now, and she's like, same way, same kind of a same experience, where she's thankful for being rooted in that, but there was a rebellious side that she's like, I don't I just want to be like everybody else.
Mhm.
That's kind of how she felt also. And Joe talks about, like, the transition of your parents, of because you were really young, because he was like 7 or 8, he said 8 or 9 or something
Mhm.
like
Yeah, I
that.
was 5.
Yeah. And so he talks about that. So you were kind of still not as influenced, like, early on, but you started getting influenced when they really, like you said, because I truly believe that when a person first encounters God, that it's like their fire is, like, lit, and they're like, it's like throwing fuel on a bonfire,
Mhm.
and everything's kind of in a sense, it's almost out of control, because you're like, but God is like, you just want to tell everybody about God, you want to do everything, and your influence around you are mean everything. And
Mhm.
like I said, me and Joe talked about how uh, a lot of the influence that they had was, like, really religious. Like, there
Yes.
was nothing outside of um, your walk with Christ that is right. Anything that you do is a sin, like you said.
Mhm.
Um, and it is, it, during our time through middle school, I think we did get a lot away with a lot more than you did. And you could kind of see it. You think about it, back up at it now, and you're like, it is different. And I think uh, do you think when, like, going to church, because what was your experience like going into the church? And were you like, okay, I get it, but I don't know if I want to do this, and but you have to. Is that where you're rebellious? Do you think that was kind of?
I think for me, it was like I had to do it. Like, I didn't wanna go to school all day Wednesday and still have to go to church, stay out late, go to school the next day, do it again on Friday, and then twice on Sunday. Um, and only like, I always had community in church, right? So, like, I always had my friends, and that was fun or whatever. But it was almost like, you go to church and you get your ear pulled if you're, like, chewing gum or, the back then, it was a lot different. I think, like, later on when we met you was when dad was already, like, pastoring his church and things were a little bit different.
Hmm.
But I just remember going to church and, like, the deacons would be so mean. You would laugh with your friend because 'cause you're having a good time and, like, they're
Yeah.
calling you out from, like, the pulpit, And so, I did it. I think back then what made me rebellious was, like, I did it because I had to do it, not because I understood it or because I felt it, and I think part of that was because I was so young
Yeah.
and just kind
So
of being told how to act, but not understanding why I should act that way or why I should feel that way, just being told, like, "You should feel this way and you should act this way," and, like, "You're gonna go whether you like it or not."
yeah, yeah, and so another thing is, if you don't know, your father, he passed on. It was about 13 years ago,
13
right?
years, yeah.
And like I said, such a wonderful man. I mean, his growth, even like you see from when he started to like when he finished pastoring, his growth was just amazing. And knowing where he was taking himself as a father,
Mhm.
and but like you said, those first years, because and this, I think this is hard to hear for a lot of pastors even, and it might be hard to hear for a lot of people in the church, that pastors, when they first start out, I really believe that it's like it's a hard balance for being a pastor and being a father, you
Right.
know? So, uh, did you ever feel like there was always that, like, where's my attention? Or did you ever
Oh,
feel like that?
100%.
Yeah,
100%, and I think, like, in all honesty, um, I think a lot of pastors struggle with that. I think, when you're a pastor, you deal with a lot of people, and they're sick people, whether it's, physically, mentally, or emotionally, and that's draining. And
yeah,
so after you deal with all these people all day long, like, you're tired and like you don't spend that time with your family. You don't do those things with because they drain your energy and your emotions. And so like I think it's true for a lot of pastors. They sacrifice a lot.
yeah, yeah,
They
it
do.
it it is where, and I think that whole, like, stigmatism of pastors' kids, I think that's kind of where it comes from, because they're just like, "Hey, where's I just seen you like spending so much time with your church. Where's my time? Where's my attention?" And it's not just it's not just another job. I mean, 100% there's
Yeah.
jobs, and then there's like ministry is a whole different
It's
thing,
like a
because
24/7. Like,
yeah,
you never know when you're gonna get called to a hospital or for prayer or, talking someone off a ledge. Like, it's constant.
yeah. So, I how so what was your mom's role in this? How do you feel your mom navigated through, even as a young age? Do you think she was like, "Anna, just deal with it," or was there like, "Let's try and find balance"? Was she more of a caretaker kind of?
No, I think she was also kind of, like, on the same page with my dad, but I also feel like, it was the influences that they were surrounded with earlier on
Mm,
in the church. I think there was, a lot of legalism, if you will, like, a lot
yeah,
of laws that, said churches abided by, and as they grew in ministry, like, those things changed drastically. Like, would look back. And I remember one time I told my mom, I'm like, she's like, why don't you go to church anymore as an adult? Right. And I said, well, because I felt like unworthy. I felt like I don't want to embarrass you, mom. And I remember her telling me, I don't care what people think. Like, what matters to me is your soul. And if they don't like it, they can leave.
Oh, that's all.
And I think that was the first time in my life where I felt like
It's okay.
heard and seen and loved and like, okay, we're on the right path.
Yeah.
But it took a lot to get there. I think in any religious organization, when there's like that legalism, and my parents were also being influenced with like, it's turn or burn. You can't, you know, wear makeup, or you should always wear a skirt to church, or you should cover your head, whatever those laws or things are in
Yeah.
a church. I think that they thought they were doing what was best for us, and they thought they were guiding us on the right path, and not realizing, like, as kids, not understanding what that felt like for us.
Yeah. Yeah, because on the outside, the world is it's kind of sad, and it's like we shouldn't base ourselves off of this, but it's like almost people look at you like, oh, look at this weird kid, or look at this weird, because even when me and Joe were first starting, and we were kind of the same way, we were like taking our Bibles and our crosses, telling everybody they were going to hell. we talk about that all we talk about that a lot, and but people start looking at you like, oh, what, you're just a weird kid, but and that's a hard thing to hear from the outside world, not really thinking, we shouldn't really pay attention, that that's our beliefs, and not the right approach, really. But it was, I mean, these are our beliefs, and this is kind of where we want to, what our parents are telling us, and that's where their influences are coming from and everything.
Mhm.
So totally understand about the rebellious side, and kind of wanting to say, this is not where I thought, where I want my life to go. And a lot of pastors' kids, a lot of people in the ministry deal with this, and but like I said, your parents, from when they started to when they, like, even now, your mom, it's a totally different story, right? They
Absolutely.
they kind of learned, and I know that your dad was like, towards the end of his life, he was, it was like almost he was trying abundance, to, he's like, I have some years to make up for my family.
Yep.
I think that was a lot of that for him, and I know Joe appreciated a lot, I'm sure you did too, of him being that for you also.
Yeah, just
uh,
spending that time together, and just being present.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So I kind of want to go back, and all this was dealt with for you. You're going, from elementary, middle school, now going into high school. um I think, so just to let everybody know, we kind of had a precursor to this discussion, because we were kind of talking, and um for one, I'm glad we, my mic was having issues, and we were kind of like, there's some other things that we want to kind of discuss on, which I'm glad that you're willing to open up to, because there's a lot of times, like, even as a young lady, like young lady, that you're like, I think it was even you said you just were searching for love. You wanted the attention of just love, not somebody, but that love early in your life. And I kind of want you to get on that, as far as like when you actually started a relationship, even getting married, right?
Mhm.
How young were you at, as a young lady? How young, what was the age you were at?
I got married when I was 14.
See, and that, and I remember it, but then when we kind of discussed it, I was like, oh my goodness, I totally forgot that you were young, that young.
Yeah.
And me and Joe talked about this, because we're just for one, I think you're just like, well, if I'm gonna if you're saying I have to be married, then you better write the papers and I want to get married then.
Yeah.
And do you think a lot of it was because you're just, and you said a phrase to me when we were talking earlier, the last time we talked, is you weren't in love with the person, you were just in love with the fact of trying of just love itself,
Right.
right? So starting out that young, how was that relationship for you, like as getting married that young and starting off?
Um, well, I think, huh, I don't know what I was thinking, honestly. I mean, we were raised different, so, I think at 9 years old, like, if you remember when you guys spent the night, like, I was making y'all breakfast, I was doing the cooking, the cleaning right alongside mom, like, I was
Mm,
a whole ass adult at, like, 10. Like,
yeah,
we were raised different, you know? Um, so I think I was always, I never got to do anything, but I was mature in the sense that, like, I knew how to change diapers. You remember mom used to watch the kids. She used to watch your little brother and your little
yeah,
sister too, and so they grew up with us, and, so, mom ran a daycare, and I knew how to watch kids, take care of kids, cook, clean, all the things, and I think, like you said, like, I was never in love with love. Was never in love with a person. I think being sneaky is what got me in trouble because I was never allowed to do things. I started to do things behind my parents' back, and then that opened me up to being vulnerable to an older guy that they knew how to prey on, like, older guys know how to prey on younger chicks, right? So, um there was this idea of like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna steal you one day," and lo and behold, my first semester of ninth grade, I'm at school and he pulls up from Texas and he's like, "Let's go," and I'm sitting there feeling like, "Shit, he came all the way out here for me. I gotta go," you know?
wow.
Um, so it was more feeling, I don't know, manipulated and trapped, if you will, like, "I'm here, let's go," like, "You have to."
But did you
Um
did you feel like in a sense though, you're like, wow, somebody actually wants me,
Yep.
somebody want
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
100%,
And it is
100%.
manipulation, but you're like,
Mhm.
wow, somebody
When I
somebody
look
wants
back
my
at it, I'm
attention.
like, yeah, he was totally a predator, and so I ran away. I think we broke down in New Mexico, and we ended up there for a few days, and then, he talked to his brother. My brother and his brother were good friends, and that's how our parents finally caught up with us. They went and picked us up, brought us back to Colorado, and they were like, "Yeah, well, yeah, now you guys have to get married." So, we went through the legal system in Colorado, and we did talk to a judge, and they're like, in the state of Colorado at that time, 16 was the legal age. I was only
Mhm.
14 at the time. And so the judge was like, "No, like, I see your loyalty to each other and where this is going. Like, come back in a year and I'll I'll let you guys do it with your parental consent." And he went at me again. He was like, "No, nope, you're mine. We're leaving." So I ran away again, and at that time, like, my parents ended up going to Texas. Texas at the time, I don't even know if that's still legal, 14, but, 14 was the legal age, and so they went to Texas and married us.
Wow. That I and I think this is such an important part of your journey because I mean, for one, the age that you're at 14 years old, and for for him to just use your vulnerability at that time, and
Yeah,
this
like, he
is
should have been in jail.
and yeah, and I think there's another thing to this because it's not in the world of social media, of accessibility of internet easily on your this guy had to actually do some work
Yeah.
to get to you and And so, but it just goes to show that like you were actually you were searching for that attention, for that love in
Mhm.
your life. And I think a lot of young ladies at that point in their life, at that entering teenage, those teenage years, puberty setting, everything's like firing on all cylinders,
Mhm.
and they're like, okay, it's time. I want a boyfriend, I want a, young man, or like I want girlfriend. And there's like, um and if you don't feel like, well, I'm not getting this attention at home, then I'm gonna like venture out and start like making something of my life,
Yeah.
so so I kind of want you to take, because um the, all this time, you're 14, you get married. um did did you have kids? At what age did you?
I had my first baby when I was 15, so I was married for almost a year, and then Maria was born 2 weeks before my 16th birthday.
Okay. Yeah. um so you're and this is this is just I'm telling you, because I you told me about this, when we were talking about it, I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that this is something. Like I said, I think because I have a young daughter as well, and I thank God that, I I've been able to, I hope it, and talk to her all the time because of situations like this. Like situations like this are always in my head. Some things that people have gone through, their journeys. You always think, I want to make sure that my daughter, and I'm sure you're like that with Marie, and you were like that with them. Like, I just want to make sure that they're not going to go through this situation also, because um, it was not a good situation like going on right throughout
No.
this first marriage. I mean, because you think that you're doing the right thing, but it ended up being like really bad at towards the end,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. No,
Um,
since the beginning, I think early on in that relationship, even before Maria was born, um, I was trapped, and sometimes I would just be lonely and I would cry because I was homesick, and I'd get beat up for it.
mm,
And I would think to myself, "God, I wanna go home," and I knew, like, if I told my parents, "Hey, come get me," they woulda come for me in a heartbeat. But my pride would not let me. I was like,
oh,
"I will not I don't wanna hear 'I told you so.' So this is my life, and I'm gonna make the best of it, and things are gonna change, and I'm gonna fix him, and it's gonna be good." So, yeah, I put up with, like, the physical abuse, the emotional, the mental. And the funny thing is I don't know if it's like, a macho Mexican thing, but I remember, like, my in-laws being in the house when these things were going on, and they would not intervene. They would
oh,
pretend like it was normal, and they didn't see it or they didn't hear it. So therefore, I thought, like, it was normal.
it was normal.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, um I've I've seen um just like friends of my daughters. They've gone through relationships where they start to get into this, and I'm so glad my daughter is open to talking to me. That's if you don't know, Brooke, she's such a beautiful girl, and she's graduating this year, but
No, I
she's
can't believe it.
I know it's crazy, but sh she's been open to talking to me and Brie about a lot of things. And I uh you know it's I'm that's why I'm so thankful, and why I'm having you on this podcast, because of your strength in carrying through a lot of those things that you've gone through at such a young age, and carrying through, because you I think it's not just you, it's a lot of people who they they get out of a relationship because you did get out of that relationship
Mhm.
eventually. And we always say we don't like to talk bad about people. The situation was the situation, but it's just a fact of what that was at that time, who that person was. And I think after that you're like, "Well, I'm gonna do better the next time," and you're kind of constantly seeking, and
Mhm.
uh, what what do you think was your experience in, like, because now you're in a wonderful relationship, you have a wonderful husband now that is so caring towards you. I know, um, Joe, he loves him, so that means a lot. He doesn't want to rip his head off.
I just wanna kill this one.
Yeah. No, such a good relationship with him. Joe has a good relationship with him, and um, how how do you feel like getting to this point? What was if there is a young lady listening to this, what are the some of the things to kind of take away what you went through in some of the relationships that you had to now, of actually, how do I skip these steps to get out of this? I mean, was it you getting in your own way, or was it you? Um, what do you think?
I think, this is what I always tell, like, younger women that are in my situation, like, if you're not happy with you, like, you're not gonna be happy with someone else. So,
Mhm.
in any situation,
Yeah.
and you need to know that you are worthy and that you deserve everything that your heart desires. And if someone is not treating you that way, then move on. Like, don't life's too short to be unhappy. Um, I did spend a lot of time finding myself after that because I felt after that I felt like shit. I felt like I had to prove that I was worthy to every other guy after that, which is what got me into other relationships and, proving my loyalty and um but I think it's just important, and in this day and age it's hard. Like, I feel like, people are always comparing themselves, especially with social media. And, I didn't even grow up with that, and I felt unworthy because of things that I was told when I was younger by this man who
Yeah.
completely, like, I remember him helping me up to the bathroom after Maria was born and telling me, "Gross, like, I'm not attracted to you anymore."
Wow.
And, you know, thinking to myself, "Okay, like, I gotta get better, I gotta get back in shape," and then, hearing things like, "Oh, well, you had a girl. It must not be mine, I wanted a boy." And
Mm,
then feeling like, "Okay, now I have to have a boy," and then having that boy, and then that not fixing the situation either. Um, but I think there came a point where I got, like, hyper independent and hyper alpha to where I was like this chick that was like, "Okay, like, I'm not gonna put up with anybody's crap." And it took me a long time to relearn how to, like, trust, right? So, it was kinda like I would get into these relationships and I'm like, "Well, you're here because I want you here, not because I need you." And then that turned into, me attracting these men that were looking for a hyper independent woman who wanted to be an adult child.
oh my goodness.
So,
Yeah.
I think, you gotta know your worth, and if somebody's not treating you the way that you wanna be treated, like, just move on, It's not that serious.
Yeah.
There's no reason to rush into marriage or, but I think it's really important for you to always find yourself and, know your wants, put yourself first. Like, just put yourself first. I think if I would've realized my worth, um long ago, like, I wouldn't have gone through all the things, but, I also feel like a lot of those things are what molded me and what shaped me and what made me into the person that I am because looking back, like I had every reason to like give up and just be like, fuck it. You here, mom, you can have my kids. I'm done.
Yeah.
But going back to like our faith, I think that's what always kept that balance for me. It didn't matter what I was going through. Like I always felt that strength within my faith that was instilled with, whether I liked it or not as a child or, want to admit it or not. Like I always turned back to God. And, that's where I found a lot of my strength in those hard times because, it wasn't easy. And me and my kids, we grew up together. And looking back, I'm like, damn, like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had no clue what I was doing, like me versus Maria's mom versus Phoenix's mom now, like it's totally different. And, you know, um, but I always, go back to just telling people, like you got to love yourself first.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's thanks for sharing that, because I think so many young ladies, um they they forget to tell themselves that, and they forget to tell them that like it doesn't matter, and shame on all the guys who down talk women the way
Yeah, and there
that
it
you were.
it messes with you.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, it plays a huge part of, how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
And it sticks with you and it's hard.
Yeah, it is, and I've seen it with a lot of different women in my life that like sisters, cousins, because I have a lot of um female like relatives, cousins, my sisters, and the way that like the words that could just hurt you, more than some of these guys know that they're just
Mhm.
damaging
It'll just
by just.
impact you forever.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I think being able to pull away from that and pull yourself out of that, and still like saying my kids, and like you said, you've been like, okay, I I know I haven't been perfect, but the one thing you did was you stuck with them. Like you said, you didn't run and say you're on your own, because I know that that wasn't easy, and being able to pull yourself from that and get to where you are now. I appreciate that about your story, because it's a part of your journey that is taking you to where you are now. And so you have five beautiful children. Yeah.
5.
Yeah. And the age gaps are, and it's because you now, like, you have your husband now, wonderful person, and you're like, I still want to share this joy of being parents with this man now. And so your daughter Phoenix, right? Beautiful young girl. I mean, it's I love seeing the pictures online of her.
Thank
But
you.
I
She was a surprise actually, that one.
Oh, so she was, so, like, were you guys like, oh, what?
She was not in the plan.
No.
She was not in the plan. We were actually, we were just having fun, living life, and, Elisandro was 14, so if we wanted to take a weekend vacation, we could get up and go, and, then Phoenix happened, so
Well, I
and
I mean, it's funny how God's plan works out, right?
yeah, yep.
So,
God's
um,
plan's not always our plan, but that kid, she's like the best thing that's ever happened for all of us. Like, she's all of her older siblings' best friend. Like,
yeah, that's awesome. And I know that her being born did not come easy for you, because
no,
you had some complications that could have, your life could have ended during your pregnancy with her. I kind of want you to share that, because there's a lot of um it's a lot what women have gone through in their life, and I want you to kind of share this story of having her, because um you you had her, how old is she now?
she's 7.
She's 7 years old. So um you like you said, you had her late in life, and you're like surprised. And did they say that that was a part of the complication, or was
No,
it just kind of a
so all of the kids were C-sections,
okay?
and which is why we were like, "Good, we don't need any more," 'cause we knew how dangerous that would have been.
Yeah.
And the other kids were older, so, like, we were fine. I was totally fine with not having kids, and my kids were grown or whatever. And, so when I got pregnant with Phoenix, she was a total surprise. Everything went as planned. Like, even though I was 39, that was probably the easiest pregnancy I ever had,
Hmm.
um, up until my water broke when I was at work. And, so when I went back to the OR, they opened me up to do my C-section, and that's when they realized that my placenta had grown into my uterine wall and entirely encased, my uterus. And so I worked in the OR, so I was friends with everybody, and so when they tell me the story, they're like, "Girl, when we got in there and we saw your uterus, we were like, 'Oh my god, where are we gonna make the incision? Because anywhere we cut you, you were gonna immediately hemorrhage.'" Um, so there was this little, it's called a window, a uterine window. So it's when you've had multiple C-sections where the lining of, the uterus is so thin, you can actually see through the window, and you can
Mm,
see, like, you can see the baby's hair, you can see the
yeah.
fluid and burn, like, you can literally see in. And so they decided, well, we're going to go through that window. And so they went through the window. Of course, I started, bleeding out right away, and it turned into an emergency hysterectomy. And so when they go to get what is my uterus mixed up with my placenta, they pull out my uterus, and my bladder comes with it, and it's also attached to this hamburger mess that's inside my belly.
Oh my goodness.
And so it turned into like a full code white, which, I bled my entire um, mass of blood out of my body, and
Wow.
was given 9 units of blood. I believe I was like hemobate, like I was a full code, and they resuscitated me for 6 hours till they could get a urologist to come from Denver, because I was at a small hospital here in Brighton, Colorado, and they didn't have urology. So they had to find someone that would agree to come from Denver to try to dissect what was my placenta and uterus off of my bladder to try to save it and save me. And so my friend said that when they finally got this urologist to come in, he took one look at me and he was like, "What do you want me to do?" And he walked out,
Wow.
because he was sure I was gonna die, and he didn't want to be a part of that.
Mm,
And so at the time, the charge nurse was a really good friend of mine, and she chased him down, and she was like, "Hey, like, if anyone can save her, you can. Like, that's our tech in there, and that's my best friend. And like, you know, if it were your daughter, like, what would you at least want someone to try?" And he's like, "Well, I guess I'll see what I can do." And so he went in, and he was able to dissect my bladder off of my intestines, uterine, everything was just, it was all a
yeah.
mess in there, and put it back together, put it inside me, and saved my life. And, later, when I finally met the doctor at my follow-up, he was getting ready to retire, and he said, "When I saw you," he's like, I knew you were gonna die." He's like, "And I didn't wanna retire with a maternal death." Um, he's like, "So I didn't wanna touch you." And at the time, I probably had maybe like a 3% chance of surviving because of the massive, like, hemorrhage that I had. And, even with all of the transfusion volume that I had, like, I was still, like, at high risk for just throwing a blood clot and passing even after. But, yeah, like, it was crazy, but I think it was all in God's plan. It it changed me for sure. It changed the path that I was on. And, before Phoenix was born, we picked her name, not knowing, the symbolism behind it. And so, yeah, the mythologically, the phoenix, when there's impending death, it turns into a ball of fire and then it
Yeah.
rebirths itself. So,
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. I know that I remember when Joe had talked about me, because like I said, me and Joe talk a lot. All of us do. Joe, Carlos LeBeau, we talk a lot, and you do come up, and because he is so proud of where you've come in your life, through a lot of the hardship that you went through in your life. And it's awesome to see the closeness of you guys. It reminds me a lot of me and my sister Esperanza. How close we are. Your guys' relationship is kind of like our relationship in a lot of ways,
yeah.
and wasn't always like, as young kids, we fought a lot, but now it's like we're just I talk to her every day, that's just who we are. But um I think, these experiences and kind of have led you to even where you're at now, because you're like, speaking of fire, it's like it kind of lit a whole new fire in being an entrepreneur in what you're doing now. And kind of want you to talk about that, how you sparked, because you were saying that a lot of the experience that you had in that operating room kind of was your decision to, because you were a nurse at the time, right?
Surgical
A tech,
assist.
surgical
Mhm.
assistant, and it kind of like pushed you out of that room because you're like, I'd never want to be in here again. And to where you're at now, kind of talk about how the step that you took and how you ended up being an entrepreneur now.
So, going back to work, when I would think about it, I wasn't afraid to go back to work, but there were definitely like signs of like PTSD. I remember that first day that I went back, and even leading up to, like, we would be on the highway and a semi would get like my husband would be driving and a semi would get too close and I would panic like, "Oh my god, we're going to die."
Mm.
Always had this feeling of like impending death or like panic post delivery. And so I remember going back to work that first day and wanting to park as close as I could to the door because I just felt like someone was going to get me.
Oh,
Um, who? I don't know, but like it's crazy the way your mind it'll play games on you, right? And I remember walking in and immediately being pulled into this room where there was like this massive hemorrhage, a shoulder dystocia where, I don't know if a lot of you know what that is, but that's when, the baby's descending, the head is out, and then the head gets stuck because the shoulders are too wide and they actually have to go in, put pressure and break the clavicle to get the baby out. And
oh,
so I walk into this, they're resuscitating a baby, there's blood everywhere. The mom doesn't speak English and they just snag me into this room to translate. And this is my first day back. And I
my,
remember hearing the baby cry, watching the resuscitation, um, smelling the blood and freaking out. Like I froze. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. And I was like, this is not normal, right? So that's when I realized like that I was having my first panic attack. And I remember my friends getting me out of the room. They're like, "Are you okay?" And like I was literally like sopping wet in sweat. And that kind of continued for a few months when I got back. And it wasn't always, and it was just like different things that would trigger it. Um, it was like different pitches of like babies crying. And I think maybe like subconsciously it sounded like Phoenix when they were wheeling her out and me feeling
oh,
like I'm not going to see her again. Or the smell of like ruptured membranes. If somebody came up and their water was broke, that smell would trigger me because my water broke right before almost died. Right. So, I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. Like, at the time, I'd been there for 17 years, and that's what I planned on doing the rest of my life was just retiring from there, and I was happy and I was comfortable with where I was in life, and, it was providing for my family. And, so at that time, I had a friend that was kind of on her journey of entrepreneurship, and she was kind of doing like Botox and fillers on the side. And, you know, she she was like, maybe it's time for you to quit and, go back to school. And so I did all of that, and never thinking like I was going to have my own business someday. I shared with you a lot of my family still live in Mexico. And, when I talk about Mexico, like when we used to visit there when we were kids, like literally we went to the bathroom in an outhouse. There was no running water.
Yeah.
We used little kerosene lamps for light at night. It was just kind of like you and the stars at night. It was beautiful. And like growing up, um, we loved that. But looking back, you're like, wow, like, really we come from absolutely nothing. And so a lot of my family that live in Mexico, to this day are entrepreneurs. They're super successful. They live way better lives than I do. And I always used to admire that about them. I'm like, wow, like why didn't my dad stay in Mexico? Why'd he bring me here? Um, so maybe that's like something that was always instilled in me that I didn't know or that I hadn't found yet. But yeah, it kind of led me on that journey where I was like, okay, like I'm in the OR, I can't breathe at certain times. I'm having these panic attacks. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go back to school and, we're going to try this. And so I cashed out my 401k. I went back to school. I invested in, what was our business at the time. And, that was another situation that I was in where I was kind of manipulated and I felt manipulated and trapped. And, it didn't work out. And it, at the time when I look back, I'm like, wow, that couldn't have happened at a worse time because, when, that business fell apart, it was right at the beginning of COVID. Like it was literally the weekend of the shutdown.
Oh,
And, I was breaking up with my business partner. I was going home and I had nothing to fall back on, and it was during that time where I was like, all right, like I'm gonna sink or swim, and so I sat there and kind of thought about how I was gonna lose everything. I was super scared. And I didn't know anything about business. I had no clue how to build a website, how to do my own booking, how to attract clients, how to like I didn't even know what I was doing. I was fresh out of school, and if you ask your wife like, like you can get certified and you can get your license, but you just know the basics, right? Like you don't learn a lot until you're out in the real world, and I hadn't even been out, into the real world at the time and to know enough.
yeah.
And, so I got my feet held to the fire, and as soon as, we were able to open up again, I took every and any client that I could. Thank God for social media, because that's kind of how, I kept in contact with the real world, and
Yeah.
was able to kind of advertise a little bit. But, in the beginning, I worked 7 days a week. I took whatever I could and, kinda just based my business on word of mouth. Looking back, that probably wasn't the smartest idea because 'cause I'd probably, be a lot bigger than I am now. But, at the time, I felt like if you have clients, and I still feel that way, that know you and love you and trust you, they're gonna refer people to you that know them and love them and trust them,
Yeah.
and therefore they're gonna trust you, right? So, um, that's what I did. Like, I was solely word of mouth, and year after year just kept pushing through and growing, and I'm still growing and I'm still learning, and, God's been good. God's been good. Like, we never went without.
Yeah, and that's so amazing because and that's why I look like a lot of the things that you went through, because you're like, I've been through the fire and I came out the other side, and I know how it feels on the other side, and that's where I want to be.
Mhm.
And so and you get to this point and now you have a support system around you to say, let's just do it, you know? Let's like kick life in the butt and just take it on. And so proud of you for taking that on, because you've become uh, just an amazing businesswoman now. And like you said, we still learn. Nobody's it, you're if you're not continually learning, then you're never going to grow, you know.
Mhm.
And somebody like you and I I that's why I'm like, you know, I'm going to be 50 here in about 3 weeks now. And I'm still learning, just even in this. There's a lot of things that it's like I feel like I don't know what I'm doing at times, you know. But
Mhm.
I think sometimes if we don't take um things that God has directed us in, you know, I think a lot of the things that you're talking about with your family, like a lot of the entrepreneurship, and you're like, that, you know, whether we see it or not, that's a part of us, a part of what your dad, the way your dad was, you know, your dad was an
Mhm.
entrepreneur in the church and taking the ministry where he did. You know, he took it a long way from starting
He
out to
did.
where he was. A lot of bumps and bruises along the way, you know. And that's what being an entrepreneur, that's what's being a person in business, and a person who is willing to take the chances and the risks, you know, because that's sometimes what we got to do in life to get to that point where we really want to see, you know, we push our limits sometimes, and sometimes it's pushing those limits that are going to take us to those points. And so proud of you, Anna,
Thank you.
where you've come. And I say that with true sincerity because, um, like I said, Joe is a proud brother. Um, he talks about you all the time in that way.
My best friend.
And yeah, and where you've taken this, because there's a lot of young ladies that think, and this, I hope my daughter listens to this because it's inspiring for young ladies like her, you know, is where am I going to go with my life? What am I going to do? Is college going to help, or is just starting, you know, how am I going to start? Well, some of the advice that you're giving is it's really vital to a lot of young ladies' lives, because not only like you got married at 14, that didn't, you
With an
know,
8th grade education, so
that's yeah, that's another amazing thing. And you have taken life and said, this, it's funny because sometimes I feel like and I hear this a lot with entrepreneurs, that you know, life wants to take them in one direction, but it's like I really feel like that's not the direction God is wanting to take us. And the way that God wants to take us isn't always the easy direction, but knowing what we could do, knowing our limitations, you know, and where we could go with them. So, and you've taken those like limitations and just ran through them. So so proud of you for doing that. And so your business now, Unfiltered Beauty, and it's I don't even know if we discuss it. It's in aesthetics,
yeah.
and some of the things that you've done now, like with your business, you've been able to actually be a part of a lot of um, business groups that I kind of want you to talk about that. A lot of the groups that you've been able to actually encounter and be a part of, because that's a huge accomplishment in what you've done.
Yeah, starting out, like, I didn't know what I was doing, and, this industry can be, like, super catty. People can be really mean, and, what I've learned is, like, those mean people are those insecure people because they think you're gonna take their business, so they don't wanna teach you anything or show you anything. And so early on, I just learned to make friends with everybody, like, whether they liked me or not, I was gonna be their friend, and, so, yeah, we have a huge community of, nurse injectors, aesthetic injectors, and, we all have each other's back, and, it's been life-changing because it's opened so many doors for us. So, like, you know, where one of us leaves off, the other one is opening the door, and, we just have each other's back, and it's led to so many, like, big trainings, even, as far as, the aesthetic next stage where, my friend Jess got to speak last year, and, like, just the things that are happening, like, the big things in our lives behind the scenes are just, like, younger me would have never believed that older me would be in the same rooms with some of the people that, we've been in, and, so, yeah, like, I think community over competition definitely in this industry has taken us all really far.
Yeah. Yeah, that kinda takes me back to, my buddy Ace Young. He was on American Idol, and he talks about that, and almost nausea about how it was for him, it was community over competition. So it's a common phrase where people who have succeeded, that if you're looking at it to like crush another individual in whatever you're doing, it's never going to work out, because it's going to come back to get you, um and in a bad way, because that's not the way we live as human beings. That's not the way God intended. And so it's such another part of what you have brought. I think your faith has directed you in your success also. So, and anybody listening, if you're ever in the Denver area looking to get some beauty in on you, I mean, look up Unfiltered Beauty, because I know you do an amazing job.
Thank you.
Just even go to, is that your Instagram? And
Unfiltered Beauty Babes.
Unfiltered Beauty Babes. So that's, go look it out. All your info's on there, right?
Yeah,
And so I I think what you're doing is amazing, and
thank
I'm looking forward to actually seeing where it's even going to go from here, because I just think you're just beginning in this.
No,
And
I love it, I love it, and, now that I have, my girls with me, like, I don't even call them my employees, like, they're my little sisters, and it's been such an amazing journey to, like, watch them grow and mentor them and, see them, to the next level, getting them certified, watching them grow in their injectable and aesthetic career, and, um, they're my babies. Like, it's been awesome. Today, they did another advanced course with, Dr. Beauty Blade, Dr. Hassan out in Cherry Creek, and, I'm a proud big sister. Like,
yeah,
I love it. I love growing them, and, it's been fun. It's been fun. I think, I probably find the most, satisfaction in my career taking all of these girls with me and growing them and, watching them succeed.
yeah, that's and like I said, when you're unselfish in what you're doing and want to share your success with what you're doing, that's when you're the most successful in all of it, because and it's kind of taken what your parents have done. That's how they succeeded a lot, because they brought a lot of people. Joe would talk about how your dad was always giving away everything. He was like,
Everything,
stop giving away
everything.
my
Man
stuff.
had holes in his pockets.
Yeah,
If he had a dollar, it was gone. Like, he
yeah,
he was always giving everything, everything.
yeah. But he would give away $1 and somehow end up with 100 more, because
Biggest heart, yep.
yeah. because
And it always came full circle.
it always came full circle, and it's definitely come full circle with you. And I'm like so happy to see you carrying the name of your family on proudly. Um, couldn't be more proud of you, Anna.
Thank you.
So everybody, Anna, thank you so much. Everybody, go check out Unfiltered Beauty Babes, and your podcast, I think, is going to be amazing also.
Thank
So
you.
I can't wait to watch that. And I know it's been a long day for you, so go enjoy your night. And Anna, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Play, 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 play. Put on